A man who had gone hungry for 3 days and nights was wandering across the western desert. Just as he was about to collapse from hunger, he suddenly spotted a thin trail of smoke rising in the distance. He glanced carefully around him and cautiously walked toward the smoke. At that moment, 4 cowboys were leisurely cooking beans when suddenly a man appeared in front of them, pointing a gun right at them. The 4 of them panicked instantly and threw their hands in the air. The man began searching their bodies and discovered that they were actually bounty hunters, so he mischievously fired a blank shot. The bounty hunters thought he was just another fellow hunter playing a joke on them and let down their guard. But what they didn't know was that the man wasn't joking at all. His gun didn't even have bullets in it. Then, he demanded bullets from the bounty hunters, and to his surprise, they actually handed them over. Once he loaded his gun with real bullets, the man immediately turned hostile, leaving the 4 hunters completely stunned. Next, the man revealed his true nature, stripping them of their belongings, forcing them to bring over their horses, and finally setting his sights on the pot of beans. Watching him devour the food, the 4 of them drooled with envy. After eating his fill, the man knocked out the cowboy holding the reins, then rode off with all their horses. But this was still not the worst moment for the 4 bounty hunters, because the true lead of the story was about to appear. Dust-covered boots, a rusted old pot, clothes reeking with stench. This was the sharpshooter Trinità. Suddenly, his horse stopped on the road, and after glancing into the distance, Trrenita calmly strapped on his holster. Not far away, the 4 bounty hunters had cooked another pot of beans, and just as they were about to eat, they heard someone approaching, so 3 of them quickly hid, while the dazed cowboy remained seated in place. Curious, Trrenita walked over to investigate, but unexpectedly fell right into their trap and found himself staring down their guns. This time, the 3 were smarter, asking about his background, and Trrenita lied that he was a rookie bounty hunter. Seeing how timid he looked, they lowered their guard again, and soon both sides were chatting happily. During the conversation, Trrenita even told them a method to cure their stunned companion, but when they tried it, the poor cowboy ended up even dumber. Only then did the 3 realize they'd been tricked, so they prepared to finish Trrenita off and take his horse. Yet Trrenita showed not the slightest fear, thinking he looked easier to bully than the previous man. 2 of them kept cooking beans while confidently ordering their partner to get rid of him, but this bounty hunter turned out to be playful, constantly toying with Trrenita, and that's when things went terribly wrong. The 3 once again became helpless prey. Trrenita forced them to remove their guns, then picked up the freshly cooked beans and began eating, clearly just as starved as before. He stuffed his mouth full while also feeding his horse, a sight that made the 3 bounty hunters sick to their stomachs. For entertainment to go along with the meal, Trrenita ordered them to fight each other, and the 3 didn't hesitate one bit, beating their companions to a pulp. Trrenita watched with delight, the brawl exceeding even his expectations. After the scuffle, only one cowboy was left dizzy and seeing stars, but when he looked up at Trrenita, the sharpshooter had already disappeared. Eventually, Trrenita returned to his long-lost home, and the man who had first appeared turned out to be his brother Bambino. From the previous story, we know that after Bambino's disguise as a sheriff was exposed, he fled back home, and his younger brother Trrenita followed him, leading to the events at the beginning. Trinita's sudden arrival shocked his brother, and because this troublemaker always brought disaster, Bambino showed him no warmth at all. Later, the family sat around the dinner table devouring turkey meat, when suddenly their mother noticed 4 uninvited guests walking toward the house. Yet everyone remained calm, as if this sort of thing was nothing new to them. Their mother slowly picked up a gun and began loading bullets, and just then, 4 masked bandits stormed inside, only to realize that the 2 brothers were the very men who had just robbed them. Before the 4 could retaliate, their mother came in from behind with a gun. Meanwhile, the brothers didn't even lift their heads, continuing to chew on their meat, while their father sneakily searched the intruders for loot. The 4 bandits were stripped clean once again. Then their mother kicked them out, proving that the brothers' toughness came straight from their parents' upbringing. On the night before leaving home, their father pretended to be sick and called both sons over, repeatedly reminding Bambino to take good care of his younger brother. Though Bambino was extremely annoyed, he still obeyed his father's words. The next day, Bambino decided to head north to seek fortune, and before they left, their father urged them to walk the straight path, but the 2 had barely stepped out before turning back to banditry. Bambino quickly seized control of the men outside, while Trrenita rushed into a wagon to plunder it, only to find the frightened Perla hiding inside. The moment Trrenita saw her, he looked even more nervous than she was, clearly already captivated by her beauty. Perla immediately pleaded poverty, insisting they were just farmers with nothing worth stealing. Unexpectedly, The awkward Trinita gently apologized and even helped her sit steady, a gesture that touched Perla's heart deeply. Bambino glanced around and realized only the horses were worth money, but the farmer begged him to spare them, explaining they needed to sell the horses to pay for their child's medical care. Seeing how desperately poor the family was, the brothers decided to leave. Just then, Trinita noticed the wagon wheel was broken, and to everyone's shock, he voluntarily repaired it for them, leaving the farmers stunned. Since when were bandits so well-mannered? Before leaving, Trinita even asked his brother to give them some money, insisting they should finish the good deed properly. Bambino nearly cursed out loud, but reluctantly pulled out 2 bills. The farming family felt as if they'd seen a miracle, showering the brothers with gratitude. Their very first robbery had ended in a loss, proving why Bambino couldn't stand his kind-hearted little brother. Later, the two arrived at the largest town in the west, and as soon as they entered, they caught the attention of the local sheriff. Thinking they might as well make some quick money before leaving, they came up with a plan. While his brother was busy repairing his gun, Trinita set his eyes on the town's gambling king, Hendrix, knowing this was the fastest way to earn cash. But the problem was, where would the stake money come from? At that moment, Bambino walked in, and seeing his brother ready to join the game, he immediately stopped him. Hendrix was a famous gambler of the region with highly skilled card tricks, but what he didn't know was that Trinita was also a master of cheating, though he rarely showed it. Thinking of their current situation and all the bills piling up, Bambino started to hesitate. Trinita asked to borrow money to play a few rounds, and after some thought, Bambino reluctantly handed him some cash. Trinita sat down at the table, and Bambino, still worried, joined him, but the moment he sat, he regretted it. Hendrix's dazzling shuffling skills left him stunned. Clearly today was going to end in poverty again. Even Trinita had never seen such flashy shuffling, and Hendrix felt smug, thinking these 2 bumpkins were the perfect prey. As expected, they lost their first round. Bambino glanced at the size of the bets and grew nervous, but when it was Trinita's turn to shuffle, his brother's eyes lit up at the sight of his stylish cuts. Though he dared not reveal their connection, Trinita's shuffling shocked everyone at the table, and Hendrix instantly grew uneasy. After the flashy moves, Trinita dealt the cards, and each hand turned out bigger than the last. The gamblers bet with full confidence, and Bambino, thinking his brother had given him the best hand, followed with equal certainty. But the strongest hand among them was Hendrix's, and he stayed in the game. After several rounds of betting, nearly all the money was in the pot. When the cards were switched, Bambino was stunned at what he held, thinking, when did this kid learn to cheat like this? The other players had even stronger hands, while Hendrix, who never switched cards, revealed 4 sevens, the highest visible hand so far. When the showdown came, Bambino confidently revealed his cards, only to find Hendrix's hand was higher, leaving him fuming. How did this kid set me up again? Just as Hendrix was about to scoop up the winnings, Trrenita calmly revealed his cards, leaving everyone in disbelief, then quickly gathered up the money, unable to accept defeat. Hendrix accused him of cheating, but Trrenita feigned ignorance, insisting he hadn't. At that moment, cowboys around the room stood up, preparing to flee as the tension mounted. Furious, Hendrix placed his hand on his revolver, and the atmosphere froze. He swaggered over to the bar, with Trrenita following, and soon the two exchanged harsh words, staring each other down, both unwilling to back off. Meanwhile, Bambino wasn't idle. He smashed two gamblers unconscious while Trrenita and Hendrix continued their standoff. Hendrix was baffled, wondering what had just happened. Trrenita then casually demonstrated again, leaving Hendrix nearly dazed, realizing he was no match and deciding to call reinforcements. Though when he tried a sneak attack on the way out, he was knocked down once more. With a big haul of money in hand, what would the brothers' next adventure be? The first thing Trrenita did upon entering town was buy himself a brand new outfit. Looking more polished than ever, he strutted down the street, and suddenly spotted the girl of his dreams arriving in town too. So he struck a proud pose, waiting for Perla to notice him. Sure enough, Perla spotted him, and the once ragged bandit now looked like a gentleman, making her fall head over heels. She got down from her wagon and greeted Trrenita, who ran over excitedly. Although he had robbed her family before, he had actually suffered greater losses himself, and when the subject came up, Trrenita looked embarrassed, hurriedly explaining it was just part of his official duties, claiming his real identity was a secret federal agent. To his delight, Perla actually believed him. Moments later, her family exited the hospital, and Trrenita prepared to slip away. But Perla, not wanting them to misunderstand, stopped him and announced she would reveal his secret identity to her family. Leaving Trrenita grinning ear to ear, Perla's father arrived, immediately recognizing Trrenita as the man who had helped them earlier. And when Perla introduced him as a federal agent, a nearby cowboy overheard. Though Trrenita had no idea, he could never imagine this little lie would soon earn him a fortune. Just then, Bambino showed up in a sharp suit, and upon learning the family's child was still unwell, Trrenita urged his brother to help them again, and this time Bambino generously handed over money. The brothers then decided to dine at the town's finest restaurant, but were told only members could enter, so they simply flashed their guns to gain entry. Inside, they were stunned by the luxurious decor, while aristocrats chatted merrily, though neither brother felt the least bit intimidated. In a corner, several wealthy businessmen noticed them, and the cowboy who had overheard Trinita's agent's story happened to be one of their men. After sitting down to order, the manager introduced the dishes in French, which the brothers couldn't understand at all, so they simply ordered everything on the menu, happy to have such big spenders. The manager rushed off to prepare. As the waiters cleared the table, the businessmen discussed whether to bribe the supposed agents to keep them from investigating, though some worried the brothers might be frauds. Just then, a waiter popped a wine bottle, and the sharp-eyed brothers immediately drew their guns, looking every bit like real agents. When they sat again, the food was served, but seeing the manager carefully portion tiny servings, the brothers grew furious. Those crumbs weren't even enough to fill a tooth gap, so they helped themselves, piled their plates high, and devoured the rest. A sight that stunned everyone present. The nobles had never seen men eat like this, and some of the ladies even cast admiring glances. A man with such an appetite must be strong. Trrenita didn't care about appearances, occasionally winking flirtatiously at the women between bites. When the wine was served, the waiters trembled, afraid the brothers would pull their guns again. The two snatched the bottles, poured enormous glasses, and downed them like water. The ladies' eyes sparkled at the sight, while jealous men muttered complaints to the manager. But the manager wouldn't dare offend such wealthy patrons and even added another lavish dish. The waiter returned with a fiery performance, lighting a pan with matches, but Bambino panicked, never having seen such cooking. He thought it was an attempt on his life. Before the manager could explain, Bambino knocked him out with a blow. Now the brothers had the perfect excuse for a free meal and strolled out proudly. The businessmen concluded the brothers must be powerful indeed and quickly decided to buy them off. Through an introduction, the brothers were invited over, confused and expecting trouble, only to be shocked when the businessmen tried to hand them money. Seeing easy money fall into his lap, Trrenita boldly demanded $4,000, explaining it was the price of blinding 4 eyes. To their surprise, the businessmen readily agreed. One henchman, unhappy with this, tried showing off his shooting skills on the spot, but he had clearly picked the wrong opponents. With unmatched skill, the brothers demonstrated what real gunplay looked like. The businessmen realized their money was well spent. Still bewildered, the two brothers walked away holding stacks of cash. The moment the two brothers stepped into the saloon, the owner demanded they hand over their guns. In the lawless West, giving up your weapon was no different from hanging half your life on your belt. But that was the town's rule, and since the sheriff was already watching them closely, even following them into the saloon, they had no choice. So the brothers reluctantly obeyed the custom, having just made easy money in the last town. The two were already thinking about how to make a fortune here. Bambino glanced around the saloon and spotted 3 familiar outlaws drinking, but none of them looked like men to be trifled with. Trinità, however, saw an opportunity to make money, and his eyes soon fell on the cowboys playing cards at the next table, where he greeted them with a nod, only to be laughed at. Quick-witted as ever, Trrenita came up with a plan. If it came to a brawl, he would need his big brother to take the lead. So he whispered to Bambino that the cowboys were mocking him, exaggerating their insults to stir up trouble. With his brother at the front, Trrenita had nothing to fear. Bambino walked over and issued a warning, successfully drawing the attention of the 3 outlaws. The brothers saw it clearly. An opportunity for profit had just walked in. Trrenita smiled knowingly and began provoking them too, but one of the outlaws grabbed him firmly. Though strong, the outlaw was caught off guard when Trrenita countered with a quick grappling move. At once, a chaotic fight broke out, with the brothers facing off against a whole gang. It turned out the entire saloon was in on it. Fortunately, Bambino's brute strength turned most of them into punching bags, and soon the brothers had cleared the place. Afterward, they dragged the 3 outlaws straight to the sheriff's office. The sheriff, thinking the men had come to bother him again, was about to kick them out when the brothers appeared right behind them. Clearly, These three had bribed the sheriff more than once. Bambino demanded $800 in bounty on the spot, and the sheriff, embarrassed, reluctantly locked them up. Only after paying the bounty did the sheriff learn that the brothers were under the protection of the wealthy merchant Parker because Trinità had pretended to be a federal agent. Parker feared investigation and had bought them off. Realizing they were on the same side, the sheriff asked the two agents what should be done with the prisoners. Trinità said, "Lock them up for a few days, tie them up, then have them beat the sheriff, that way the bounty will be even higher." The sheriff was dumbfounded, then cautiously asked if the brothers were off to carry out their mission. The two nodded, utterly confused. In truth, they had no idea that Parker was secretly smuggling weapons. After making some money in town, Bambino complained that it was too slow, so he went back to his old trade of stealing horses. The brothers lay in wait by the river, watching for passing cowboys. Suddenly, the sound of a braying mule rang out, and when Trinità went to check, he was overjoyed to find it was none other than his beloved Perla's family. Fate wasn't finished with them yet. He rushed back with his brother to help. Trinità tried to play the hero, but the stubborn mules ignored his commands and kicked up a fuss. It wasn't until Bambino whispered something to them that the mules finally pulled the wagon out of the water. Soon after, Trinità seized the chance to slip away with Perla for a private talk. One thing led to another, and they shared a kiss only to be interrupted by his grumpy brother. When the two returned, both were beaming with joy, while Bambino scowled, certain his brother had been up to no good. Before leaving, Bambino teased the child and discovered the illness was still untreated, so he reluctantly gave the family more money. Clearly, banditry wasn't paying off, so the brothers planned to raid along the border, but nearby Mexicans overheard them. Their bruised and battered faces piqued the brothers' curiosity. The Mexicans explained that corrupt friars had been oppressing them, and begged the brothers to bring justice. Sensing profit in the crisis, the two decided to visit the monastery in search of opportunity. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The priest assumed they had come to confess, and led Bambino to the confessional booth. Bambino was stunned. Weren't these friars supposed to be fierce? They seemed gentler than he was. The priest asked him to confess his sins so that he could offer guidance and forgiveness. With plenty of pent-up frustration, Bambino began recounting his misdeeds from birth onward. But before he even reached the age of 12, the priest was overwhelmed. Never before had he encountered such a hardened sinner. As Bambino went on, the terrified priest pulled the curtain shut. Bambino grew furious, demanding absolution, and the priest, trembling, quickly agreed. He began chanting prayers, but Bambino had no patience for it. Enraged, he smashed the confessional booth apart. Trrenita rushed in to restrain his brother and asked the priest what secrets lay hidden here. The priest, terrified, revealed a key figure to them. What secret would the brothers uncover next? A beaten-up villager warned the fake federal agents that lately the friars had been attacking people for no reason. The brothers were surprised. These friars must have wealth if they could afford the medical bills. Originally planning a border raid, the two realized that fortune had delivered itself to their door. But when they arrived at the monastery, they were shocked to find the friars toiling in the fields, hardly looking wealthy. The abbot assumed they had come to confess sins, and led Bambino into the confessional, which ended up demolished by his temper again, until Trrenita stopped him. Trrenita asked why they had been attacking people, and the abbot quickly explained it was bandits impersonating friars. Realizing the truth, the brothers rushed to the sheriff's office to report it, but after waiting in vain, they instead encountered Perla's father. He handed a letter to the imprisoned outlaws and told them it was time to deliver the goods. The brothers were confused. What goods? But it had to be valuable, so Bambino ordered Trrenita to stake out the monastery that night, hoping to finally strike it rich. Though reluctant, Trrenita agreed, and as soon as he climbed the wall, his eyes lit up. Perla's family was staying there. Forgetting his task, he jumped down to meet her, pretending to be on a secret federal mission. Perla, starved for affection, kissed him passionately. Lost in the moment, Trrenita forgot why he had come. Meanwhile, Bambino waited anxiously at the saloon until midnight, even setting his watch back 2 hours to hold onto his patience. Instead of his brother, 2 cowboys showed up asking about the imprisoned outlaws. Suspicious, Bambino followed them. Sure enough, the 2 freed the 3 outlaws, intending to deliver the goods to Parker at the border. But before they could leave, Bambino appeared with his gun and sent them right back to jail. Still restless, Bambino returned to the saloon, waiting for news from his brother. If it weren't 40 miles away, he would have gone himself. Meanwhile, Trrenita was basking in Perla's love. Suddenly, a group knocked at the monastery gate. Trrenita told Perla to hide as he watched closely. The friars opened the gate, and in marched impostors dressed as monks, who began hauling crates from the cellar onto wagons, with the friars cooperating. When the job was done, their leader tossed the abbot $50,000 and ordered him to deliver it to Parker. Just as they were leaving, Trrenita stepped forward to stop them, to separate impostors from the real friars. He forced them into a fight, finally telling them apart. The abbot, mistaking Trrenita for a bandit, clutched the money tightly. At that moment, Perla's father appeared and addressed Trrenita as lieutenant. Playing along, Trrenita confirmed his identity as a federal agent. He claimed the money was dirty and tried to confiscate it, but the abbot refused. Handing it over would cost him his life. Trrenita argued, "If I confiscate while confessing, God will forgive me." The abbot countered by mentioning Bambino's sins, saying even he could be forgiven. Realizing the abbot knew too much, Trrenita reluctantly let him keep the money. Back at the saloon, Bambino was still waiting when the two cowboys returned, nervously asking about the sheriff. Determined to uncover their scheme, Bambino followed them back to the jail. Seizing his chance, he locked them up once again. The outlaws remained behind bars after all. When he finally returned, he found Trrenita strolling in. The next day, the brothers returned to the monastery, where Bambino verified the existence of the $50,000 stash. Immediately, the two began acting out a skit as federal officers, pretending to seize the money for the government but intending to keep it. Just as they were about to slip away, Parker arrived with his men, blocking their escape. Parker ordered the friars to arm themselves for battle, but the abbot was horrified. None of them even knew how to use guns, and besides, the weapons had already been shipped out the night before. Then he came up with another idea. As Parker shouted at the gates for repayment, the abbot climbed up and declared, "We'll return the money, but no guns are allowed inside this holy ground." Confident in his numbers, Parker ordered his men to disarm and swaggered into the monastery. The last 3 men to enter were the same outlaws who had been robbed by the brothers earlier. Once inside, Bambino and Trrenita, disguised as friars, quickly shut the doors, leaving an old monk outside to bar them, sealing the outlaws inside like lambs to the slaughter. When Parker grew impatient and ordered his men to draw weapons, they discovered the brothers blocking the exits with guns in hand. But suddenly, one bandit grabbed Perla as a hostage, forcing the brothers to drop their guns. After snatching the money from Bambino, the bandits tried to escape, but the doors wouldn't budge. The old friar outside held fast, no matter how hard they pushed. Then Perla's father remembered his hunting rifle. Trrenita seized it and fired to scare them, only to discover it had a single bullet, leaving him red-faced. The bandits charged, eager to finish the brothers off, but Bambino dove in first, wrestling them down. Trrenita quickly joined, while the friars stood by watching. After observing for a while, they realized the bandits weren't so tough, and finally decided to fight back, unleashing a furious counterattack that filled the monastery with dust. In the end, the friars triumphed. At that moment, a troop of cavalry stormed in. The colonel squinted, recognizing the two brothers as horse thieves he had been pursuing. Terrified, Trrenita quickly handed him the money. Before the colonel could recall more, Trrenita stuffed even more cash into his hands, managing to talk his way out. The brothers left town empty-handed, but on the road, Trrenita once again encountered Perla and her family. And with that, the film came to an end. I'm a film enthusiast. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.